ever picture a medieval castle as just thick walls and towers? Think again. These stone giants hid tricks so bizarre and clever, they'd make a Hollywood scriptwriter jealous. Forget boiling oil and drawbridges, we're talking about toilets turned into death traps, swarms of weaponized bees, and even fake towers built to fool enemies. Castles weren't just fortresses, they were machines of deception, science, and sheer creativity. And today, we're diving into the strangest defenses you've never heard of. Ready to be surprised? Most people imagine castles as solid rock that could only be cracked by trebuchets or battering rams. But here's the twist. Many victories didn't come from brute force at all. Instead, they came from cunning little tricks hidden in the walls, courtyards, or even gardens. These defenses weren't always glamorous, but they worked, and they made invaders miserable. Over the next few minutes, we'll explore 7 of the weirdest, smartest, and most unexpected secrets castles used to stay safe. Let's start with the one place nobody expected. The bathroom. Every castle had garderobe's small toilet chambers where waste dropped straight down a vertical chute. And here's the kicker. Those chutes emptied right outside the walls. Guess what that meant? To a sneaky attacker, they looked like ready-made entry points. Some invaders really did try climbing up through a castle's toilet shaft. Disgusting, absolutely. But in desperate times, any hole in the wall looked like an opportunity. This made garderobes a serious weak spot, unless defenders turned them into something much, much worse. Castle defenders weren't stupid. They quickly realized enemies might try this route, so they weaponized it. Some garderobes were designed to drop straight into cesspits, impossible to climb out of. Imagine drowning in medieval sewage. Others had hidden grates or even boiling water waiting below. Chronicles tell of attackers who vanished in toilet shafts, never to reappear. If you think boiling oil is bad, imagine being greeted with a bucket of what came from the castle's latrines. Brutal, disgusting, and effective. The bathroom wasn't the only unexpected line of defense. Sometimes entire battles could be decided before a single arrow was loosed, all thanks to sound. Imagine standing watch in the dark, and suddenly the castle's alarm blares across the countryside. Not just bells or drums, we're talking massive bronze horns, echoing for miles. Castles didn't only build walls, they built communication systems. And in an age without telephones or radios, those signals could mean the difference between survival and total destruction. In peacetime, a castle's towers looked peaceful. But in danger, they became giant alarm systems. The simplest signals were fire beacons, huge flames lit on towers at night or flags by day. This chain reaction could carry warnings across dozens of miles. One lit beacon on a castle wall might trigger another on a hilltop, then another, until whole regions were alerted. It was medieval long-distance messaging, faster than any rider on horseback. Think of it as the original emergency text alert. But some castles took sound to the next level. Chronicles mention massive bronze horns, long trumpets, or enormous bells that could be heard for miles. Imagine the dread. You're an invading soldier sneaking closer at night, and suddenly a deep roar echoes across the valley, waking the entire garrison. These weren't just alarms. They were psychological weapons, a way of saying, "We see you, and we're ready." Before the first arrow flew, attackers already felt hunted. Not a great way to start a siege. Castles didn't only rely on stone. Some surrounded themselves with living defences, dense thickets of hawthorn, wild roses, or blackberry bushes. These plants were deliberately cultivated to form impenetrable barriers. Imagine charging forward in armour, only to be snagged by thorns ripping your clothes, your skin, and your pride. Even cavalry found themselves tangled, horses refusing to move through the thickets. What looked like harmless greenery was actually medieval barbed wire, slow, painful, and nearly impossible to force through quickly. The genius of living walls was in time. A single moment of hesitation under enemy fire could mean disaster. While attackers struggled through thorns, defenders above had perfect opportunities to shoot arrows, drop stones, or launch counterattacks. Some castles even planted their hedges in multiple rows, forcing invaders into endless slow-motion suffering. Imagine a field battle where the ground itself claws at you before you even reach the enemy. Smart castle lords knew. Nature was a cheaper ally than stonemasons. So far we've seen toilets turn deadly, horns echoing like thunder, and roses that bite harder than wolves. But if that seems strange, wait until you hear what some castles kept on their battlements. Bees. Yes, entire hives of them, ready to be unleashed, because nothing says go home to an invader quite like thousands of angry insects stinging through every gap in your armor. The next time you see a beehive, imagine it dropping from 50 feet up. You've heard of boiling oil, but what about boiling tempers? From bees? Medieval defenders sometimes kept hives right on castle walls. In a siege, they'd drop entire woven hives onto attackers. Imagine hundreds of furious bees buzzing inside armor, crawling under helmets, stinging eyes and hands. Soldiers panicked, shields dropped, formations broke. And unlike arrows or rocks, bees kept fighting long after hitting the ground. Invaders expected stone and steel. Instead, they got nature's angriest little soldiers. The brilliance of bee warfare was psychological. Even the toughest knight could handle a sword fight, but not swarms of stingers attacking every gap in his armor. Horses bolted, soldiers tore off helmets, commanders lost control. A single beehive could scatter dozens of men. And here's the kicker, beekeeping was already common in castles for honey and wax, so the hives doubled as both food supply and secret weapons. A sweet resource turned into a nightmare for any unlucky attacker. Castles didn't just throw rocks. Sometimes defenders used clay jars filled with quicklime, a powder that reacts with moisture. When hurled from walls or catapults, the jars exploded into choking white clouds. Soldiers caught in it, coughed, gasped, and clawed at their eyes. Chroniclers describe attackers stumbling blindly, tearing off armor, and collapsing in confusion. Against armored knights, it wasn't strength that worked best. It was chemistry. Quicklime attacks worked because they attacked what armor couldn't protect. Lungs and eyes. In the chaos, formations crumbled, siege engines stalled, and morale shattered. A knight blinded by dust wasn't a knight at all, just a stumbling target. Some castles stored jars of lime alongside regular stones, ready to unleash when the perfect moment came. It wasn't flashy, but it was devastating. Imagine marching for weeks only to be stopped cold by a handful of powdered rock. By now, it's clear castle defense wasn't just about brute force, it was about creativity. From bees to burning powder, defenders constantly looked for ways to stay one step ahead. But all these tricks would have been useless if attackers found a way to poison the one thing every human needs: water. That's why some castles built secret wells and hidden cisterns, carefully concealed so enemies could never cut them off. Thirst was deadlier than swords, unless you planned ahead. Every siege came down to one simple truth. Without water, a castle was doomed. Attackers knew this, and often tried poisoning wells or cutting off access. To counter it, smart builders dug secret wells deep inside the castle, sometimes hidden under floors or disguised in cellars. Some reached astonishing depths over 100 feet down into bedrock. These hidden lifelines meant defenders could outlast thirsty besiegers outside. What looked like ordinary stone courtyards sometimes concealed survival itself. Some lords went even further, building 2 water systems, one public, one secret. If invaders poisoned the obvious well, defenders switched to the hidden source. Archaeologists have uncovered disguised cisterns and drainage channels that funneled rainwater into underground tanks. To outsiders, they looked like random stone slabs or storage rooms. To insiders, they were the difference between life and death. Imagine besiegers celebrating after spoiling a castle's well, only to learn the garrison was still perfectly hydrated. Castles also fought with illusions. In some sieges, defenders built fake wooden towers or flimsy stone walls to mislead attackers. From a distance, they looked real tall, intimidating, and heavily manned. Invaders wasted time preparing to assault them, only to discover they weren't true fortifications at all. In warfare, time was everything. Hours spent building ladders or rolling siege towers toward a fake wall could mean the real defenses were never touched. The power of fake towers wasn't in stopping an attack, it was in confusing the enemy. Invaders hesitated, argued, or attacked the wrong spot. That hesitation bought precious minutes for defenders to prepare counterattacks. Medieval chronicles describe armies breaking ranks in frustration when their breach turned out to be a useless illusion. Castles proved that sometimes the sharpest weapon wasn't a sword or arrow, it was a lie, carved in stone or in wood dressed up as stone. By now, you've seen defences that used everything: nature, chemistry, deception, even human waste. These weren't the strategies you'll find in most schoolbooks, but they were often the difference between survival and annihilation. And beyond the physical tricks, they carried something even stronger: psychological warfare. Few things rattled an army more than being stung by bees, blinded by lime dust, or realizing the enemy had endless clean water. But the story doesn't end here. The strangest defenses weren't just about hurting bodies, they crushed enemy morale. Imagine being stung by bees, coughing on burning lime, or stumbling through thorns while defenders laughed from above. Even rumours of these tricks could break an army's spirit before a siege began. Castles weren't invincible, but they knew how to make enemies feel powerless. Fear, confusion, and humiliation were weapons as real as swords. Sometimes, winning wasn't about killing. It was about making the enemy give up first. For centuries, these tales sounded like legends, but archaeology confirms them. Excavations have uncovered garderobes designed as traps, jars of quicklime, hidden cisterns, and even collapsed tunnels proving countermining. In some ruins, traces of thorn hedges and beekeeping pottery turned myth into fact. Far from being just stories, these tricks show how brilliant and desperate medieval defenders could be. The stone walls we see today only tell half the story. The rest lies in the secrets buried underneath. So, medieval castles weren't just walls and towers. They were playgrounds of human ingenuity, where lords and builders turned every weakness into a weapon. From deadly toilets to fake towers, they proved survival was about brains as much as stone. Next time you picture a siege, remember, attackers didn't just face arrows and swords. They faced fear, filth, fire, and bees. And more often than not, the strangest defences were the ones that truly saved the day.